Okay, here at the Cobra 49 channel, we are a glutton for punishment. We're going to install our last two dies on our setup here. The seating and crimping die. Now if you notice, I had to move this powder measure more or less basically in line to where if we had the actuator, the chain would go into this little part here. So I kind of had to readjust it. It's still throwing a good powder charge and expanding the neck. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the last two dies in, the seating die and the crimping die. But I want to also install a bullet feeder. Now what the bullet feeder does is going to add another set of tubes to the back of this machine and feed the bullets down. And what this thing looks like, it's basically a bracket, a tube, an actuator, and that, and a plate. And it goes up underneath, the seating die goes in there, and it automatically feeds a bullet under the seating die. Now for this to work, you have to have the lead dies. That's why I had to buy the lead dies. If you notice, there's a chamfer or taper here on the end of the die. And all your newer lead dies will be like that. And that is to be used, there we go, focus, in the progressive reloader for this bullet feeder. And we'll get it out and try to install it and finish up the install and start cranking out some ammo. First step with this, and you know the pieces in here, this is the mechanism. There's a set of fingers on here that I bought specifically for, let me get it out. Alright, so what it is this contraption here is going to sit down on this underneath the seating die. And I guess it, with these fingers here on the bottom, will load the bullets as they drop in, I guess, to a tube. So we'll go over that and installing it. But the good news is, this is like a $57 part, depending on where you buy it, is you can change the fingers in here. And I don't know about the size, because it goes by the length of the bullet and that, but I think you can just swap out the fingers and adjust this to where you only need the one basic feeder. And you get the feeder, and you get the actuator arm, and the plate. The plate is used for other progressive reloaders. We're not going to use the plate. We're going to have to remove that. So this is going to be a tricky setup. And the thing is, this goes under. So we're going to have to pull this lock ring breech plug die out. And you're going to have to use the instructions that come with the press state that you will have to use in these two positions. I'll go get one. Your straight breech lock thing with, and then you're going to have to use the lock ring that comes with the die set, because the way you orient this and that, you have to twist these lock rings. The higher up one won't work with that bracket in place side by side. And it mounts to this thing here. So a little tricky. So we're going to get our two things set in there and locked. And I'm going to try to figure out how to set this all up here in a second. And go over it with you, and we'll get it a try. But if this does work, it's going to be neater than, you know, it's going to be really neat. Alright. Okay, step one is to get 2 wrenches here and here, and loosen this and remove this plate. So I'm going to go do that. I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm just going to go get the wrenches and do it. Okay, 2 3/8 of an inch wrenches. And we loosen this. Loosened it, you got to remove the plate. So this thing kind of goes on there pretty stiff. I'm going to get that off. Okay, I remove this from there. I get the plate off. Now we have our own thing here in the back, this little eyelet. And like I said, this thing went on pretty tough. I don't know how you adjust it, but I'll get it started back in there. And you just kind of push this rod, this actuation rod, back onto that nut, which it kind of slides on that rod pretty tough. So we'll slide that up a little. It'll take me a bit, and my hands will be in the way anyway. And then we're gonna go there. This piece has like a little shoulder to it, the spring load, and it goes through this hole. And then we're going to tighten this down on the back side of it. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, what I've done is that little plastic nut, it slides hard on the rod. So I pushed it down where the rod just starts to come through. I take the spring in the other part, go through it, and I'm just going to give it a tighten it down with the wrenches. And leave it there. That kind of shows how it looks in the picture. Okay, so we tighten that. Alright, we're going to go on to the next step in the instructions. Okay, the next step, they tell you to put the crimp die in first. So we'll set the crimp die like you would any other die. Run this all the way up. Then I'm going to run it down because this does do a sizing op. I'm going to run this down till it's flush with the shell plate. It's going to be a little bit. And also leave the lock ring on. So I'm going to run this down flush to the plate, and then I'm going to show you, I'm going to turn this lock ring, and you have to orient it, and we'll orientate it a certain way, and then we'll take a look at it. But that's basically how I'm going to set it. I'm just run it down to where it touches the shell plate. I'm going to run a case up in there and then turn this down to where it touches a size case, then give it a quarter, half turn, and the crimp die should be set and ready to go. Okay, now the reason you do this first is you have to orientate this crimp die with this nut almost straight, because when you mount this other device, damn hand ain't giving me a break today. Underneath, this is how this is going to mount underneath the seating die. So this lock ring nut hex has to be fairly straight so this can be able to be clamped down there. Now another thing to watch for is this ejector thing here when I was setting it. You see, and this what happens is when you rotate around, it's just a piece of plastic that pushes the shell out. Make sure it's in the little hole there. I'll set it back. Make sure it's in like it should be, because it'll interfere with setting the crimping die. So now I got the crimp die set. I put I touched off on a plate so it'll size. I put a size case in, rolled it down to where it touched the mouth, and then just gave it a quarter, half turn. So it's set and ready to go. Now we're ready to try to set our seating die. Okay, the next step, But putting this bullet feeder up on there is going to be a royal pain in the ass. So I'm going to explain to you what I'm going to do, and probably while doing it, because it's going to take a bunch of time and fumbling around. So you have your actuator rod here, and if you can look and see, I don't know if you can or not, it's bent like this. So in the instructions it shows you there's 3 holes where this actuator rod goes. There's 3 holes in the side there. Now I don't know if that's for different lengths or machines or whatever, but the instructions show putting the rod in the last hole. So what I'm going to have to do is put the rod in the last hole, and you got to go down and loop it around. We'll do that now. Last hole. Put the actuator rod in there. Oh, I love this. Oh, they got the camera on, wants to move. Okay. And then we got it rocked down in there. Okay, so now we got to put this, and this is where this alignment of this comes in, fit in there. And then we take our sizing die, and we have to use the hex nut to lock. We can't use our, and this is where we had to be sure that our powder measure was in the right place. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to run this down, and I'm going to have to feed a case up and make sure I'm not hitting the crimp end of the die. Back off the seating plug. And then once I have the die body where I want it, I'll tighten this down, holding this thing up. Then we're ready to go and back off the seating plug, and then put a case with a charge, and then adjust our seating plug like we normally will. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to try to sit here and show you this because it's going to take a bit of time, but that's what I'm going to do, is run this down to where, because there is a crimp on the inside of this lead seating die. There's a little crimp thing. So I'm going to run down to where I hit it, back it off, tighten it down, secure this apparatus. Then I'm going to go put a charge case in and adjust this till I get it to where it's seating correctly. Then I'll worry about using the automatic bullet feeder or how it works. But it's going to take a bit for me to set this up. But anyone who's reloaded before knows. And see, you got to make sure there's brackets in here and lined up with the other lock nut, and you got clearance and everything else. And then we'll take a look at it when I'm done. Okay, I finally got the thing mounted. There's your actuator arm and where it mounts, and this thing slides up and down that plug. Now the reason we had to use these is because where this bracket lies for the functioning and everything, and then setting this die was horrible. You have to pull this all off, set the die to a height, and kind of tighten the nut down onto that ring underneath. And then put this bracket on, tighten that down. I had to take the powder measure out, everything, strip this down, tighten it down. And then, fortunately, I had a similar bullet that I already reloaded, so I set the seating die. It shouldn't hit the crimp or anything. And then this is your feeder, which are little fingers in that go in there. Now I'm going to try to load some cases with some of the stuff I primed in it, just to test this. And if I get it running, I will actually show you. But I'm going to sit down and try to test it out and see if I can give you a side view of this contraption. The good thing about this is I think once you buy the bracket in that for $12 or something, you can buy the fingers that'll go to different caliber bullets. And this weird thing has a small and large tube in it. So you put the small tube in and line up the small bullets, and with larger bullets you just pull the small tube out, I guess. It's kind of odd. So let me sit down and see if I can make the final adjustments and got my seating die right, and see how it goes. And then maybe I'll do a video, because it's getting late in the day, I'm kind of tired. If I can crank 10 rounds out and get this to work, we'll call it a day and wrap this video. Okay, I had the automatic bullet feeder on there. I've been fooling with this. If you put bullets in the tube, you best be ready to pick them up, because it's automatic, and it'll just, if you have empty stations, it'll just throw the bullets. It's the only thing I don't like about this press, is once you start, you better make sure everything's alright. Now it's getting late in the day. I got that foolish thing on there, and it's pretty neat, and I think it'll work out alright, and it's nice because it does feed the bullet. I adjusted my depth. The crimp die looks okay, and I got some that I primed. I don't have the primer on there. I'm just testing out this bullet feeder and see how it works. And tomorrow we'll probably load some, so let's give it a crank. It comes up. What am I binding on? Might be that one bad shell. Okay. Oh. I don't know where that one come from. Alright. So I got a charge. So far so good. Got a mangled bullet in there. Pull that out. And why are we not? Oh, we got one. Okay. Powder charge. Let's do another one. Puts it up there. Nice deal. Okay, here I'll show you what happens when you don't have one ready. Bullet just flops right out. Get it out of the way. And hopefully, and we got a powder charge, just double checking for powder charges. And there we go. Alright, that's nice. Okay, I guess you got to work the bugs out of it, but so far so good. We're feeding bullets, we're feeding cases. We got the automatic bullet feeder installed and working, and we'll look at some more accessories tomorrow and try to get this to where we're producing and running some 9mm cartridges. But that's the install of the automatic bullet feeder. It seems to work pretty good, but like I said, you best have cases there or it's going to feed bullets. Alright.